So we are out here in Chicago, Illinois. I haven't been here since 2017 and Nadia has never been here before today. That said, we are going to explore the city as much as we possibly can within the next 3 hours, because after 3 hours, that $38 parking becomes something like $50. So we're just gonna see however much we can. And as we're walking around, I'm realizing that although I've been here multiple times in the past, I've never actually seen a whole lot of Chicago. I think that because I have family here, a lot of times whenever we come here, our trips are centered around visiting my family, but I've never really seen this part of Chicago, for example. So this park that we're in with this fountain, never seen this before. You can see there's a lake up there. I knew it was there, but I've never actually seen it with my own eyes. A lot of people don't know Chicago actually has a beach. But from a European standpoint, what I want to know from you is, do Europeans know about Chicago? Because obviously when we went to New York, we went to Times Square, you kind of knew what to expect. Yeah. Even though it still surpassed your expectations, you had expectations to begin with. Yeah. But with a city like Chicago, I have to wonder if there are expectations at all.
I mean, I knew about Chicago, but I didn't really know what to expect of it. I just kind of had this idea that it was older, but not much beyond that.
So when we drove in here last night, she mentioned that she didn't know there were this many skyscrapers, and you can see there are quite a few skyscrapers here, because Chicago is actually the 3rd largest city in the US. Did you know that or no?
I did not.
You didn't. So yeah, I think that this is a place that a lot of Europeans who do still come to the US in spite of the travel advisories probably neglect to visit, but I honestly think it's worth a visit. I think it's worth coming out here and just experiencing this for yourself, because this is more of an authentic American city. And what I mean by that is, a place like New York has a very, very strong international influence, because for starters, I mean, it was founded by Dutch people, but also there are a lot of international people living there. And while that's also kind of the case here, it's not nearly to the same extent. So let's go ahead and start walking back toward the actual city part. But what are some of your first impressions about Chicago?
I would say that it does give like an older vibe.
Okay.
Like I had expected.
Older as in dated, or older as in charming?
I'd say it's on the charming side.
Okay.
Not like how I felt like Boston was really charming.
Yeah.
I feel like this is more old than charming, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I didn't expect there to be this many skyscrapers and modern looking buildings. So that's something that I really noticed. And then here I go again with the lights, but I do like the lanterns.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, the little lanterns in the park.
Yeah. And I really like this fountain.
Yeah. Yeah, Chicago is honestly a really nice city. I mean, a place like New York, if you go there, especially Times Square, it's overwhelming. It is a very overwhelming place, especially if you're someone like Nadia who gets overstimulated very easily. But if that's the case, if you have that kind of personality, I think Chicago provides a nice middle ground where you can still get all of the benefits of being in a big city without a lot of that overstimulation that you get from Times Square. I still think that everyone should visit Times Square if given the opportunity, but I also think that if you have the means to do so, you should include Chicago as a part of that trip, because I mean, this place is not lacking for anything pertaining to urbanity or urbanism, whatever you want to call it. This is a proper city. But right now we're heading toward, I think it's called Millennium Park, if I'm not mistaken. I know for sure Nadia's never seen that before, so I want to show her that. But
I want to say it definitely feels a lot less chaotic and just more chill,
Yeah.
especially for like if it's the third biggest city. It
Yeah.
doesn't feel like it, and it does feel more, a little bit more compact and walkable
Then what?
than New York.
Really?
Yeah.
This feels more walkable to you than New York?
Well, I don't know. Like maybe than other cities outside of New York.
Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense. I mean, we're right here in the heart of downtown Chicago, and because of our schedule, I mean, I don't want to share where we're going next, but if you kind of track the direction we're driving in, I think it becomes pretty obvious. But because we're on such a tight timeline, this is probably the only city that we'll really be able to explore in the Midwest. So I don't know if you knew this, but we are officially in the Midwestern United States. And the Midwest carries a whole separate vibe, let's go ahead and go this way, than the Northeast, the New England area, and the South. So basically, because you're probably not going to really have enough time to see this for yourself, let me just go ahead and break this down. So the Midwest is kind of like a mix of the Northeast and the South, meaning that you have a lot of that friendliness that you get in the South, but it's a more reserved kind of friendliness. It's really hard to explain, but once you've been around the people in these different regions, then you can see it for yourself, that the people in the Midwest, maybe not in Chicago proper, because any big city is going to have people who are maybe not quite as friendly, but once you get outside of the city proper, you kind of see that, okay, people are nice, people are friendly, they might smile at you, etc., but they're not as hospitable or accommodating as people in the South. And I would actually say, and this is just based on my personal opinion, that the friendliness that you see here in the Midwest is more genuine. It's more of a genuine friendliness, whereas that Southern friendliness can be a little bit over the top. At a certain point, you're like, okay, what do you want from me? Why are you being this nice? But Chicago definitely carries a much chiller vibe.
Yeah.
And I think maybe if we were coming from Dallas to Chicago, this might feel a bit hectic to us. But because we were just in New York literally 4 or 5 days ago, and that's still top of mind, I mean, this feels like a welcome relief from all of the stress that comes with being in that area. But again, I think Chicago is a really, really great city to visit. Also, while we're here, Nadia is going to be trying Chicago deep dish pizza.
Am I?
Yes, you are.
And
we're actually going to record this. That was the plan when we came here, was you're gonna try New York pizza and you're gonna try Chicago pizza, and then you can compare them for yourself, because that's kind of a big debate amongst people in Chicago and people in New York, is which place has better pizza. So we'll let you determine that. Yeah, it's a very, very big thing.
Did you ever try Chicago pizza?
I haven't, no.
I wonder if there's vegan Chicago pizza.
Let's not even explore that possibility, because I'm trying not to eat out anymore. I'm trying to stack my bread, because that last pizza that we got, I think I mentioned this in another video, it was $71. And then the parking here in Chicago, $38. I'm trying to save my money. You wonder why we're eating canned beans and stuff like that, is because we're trying to travel the whole entire country for ideally less than $2,000. So of course we have to make some sacrifices, but you at the very least will be trying Chicago pizza before we leave the city limits. But right now we're walking toward Millennium Park. At least I hope so. I really hope we are.
Well, we are.
But once we get there, then you can kind of see the real touristy part of Chicago, so to speak. And maybe you've already seen the Bean before. It's called the Bean. You'll know it when you see it. But I'm gonna go ahead and cross the street and try not to get hit. But to her point earlier, Chicago is definitely a much more walkable area than a place like Dallas. Also, there's much better public transit here. We're not on the public transit. We didn't take the public transit today, hence the $38 parking. Maybe we should have. But there are trains, there are buses, and I don't see any bike lanes, but I'm sure there are bike lanes somewhere throughout the city because they have this kind of bike share system like a lot of big US cities have. But I know we literally just got here and I'm asking you to make a snap judgment, but where would Chicago rank on your list of US cities? Because right now you have Boston #1,
Yeah.
you have Washington DC #2, and you have New Orleans #3.
Yeah.
Is Chicago replacing any of those cities in the top 3? And is it above New York?
That's tough.
It is.
Well, as far as I can see now, because we've been walking for like 15 minutes or something, so you can't really make a whole judgment on that. But for right now, I'd say it doesn't replace any of the top 3 cities for me. And as far as if it's above New York, I don't know. I feel like as far as like living here or visiting?
Both.
Okay, so for living, I probably put this above New York. For visiting, I'd say New York above Chicago.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty fair assessment that honestly most people would probably agree with. Chicago, downtown, I'm not gonna lie, I wouldn't really mind living in a place like this. Maybe not this city specifically, but a city like this, I wouldn't really mind living here for a few years in a high rise or something like that, and just being near these parks and whatnot. Walking, cycling. Of course, these are all things you can get in Europe for about half the price, but different discussion for a different day. We're talking about the US right now. Out of American cities, I do think that this is probably one of the better cities you can live in. Chicago does have its very rough areas, but they're not really in downtown, at least not to my knowledge. The more well-known hood of Chicago, so to speak, is the South Side. So as long as you steer clear of the South Side when you're visiting, or if you move here, you should be all right. I know there are other bad areas. My aunt, my family who lives here, actually had their house burglarized a few years back while somebody was in the house. So things do happen, but if nothing else, I do think that this is a fairly decent place to live.
So I'm curious to know, what's your top 3?
My top 3 in terms of visiting or living?
Both.
I think that we'll have to wait until we complete the trip for me to give my rankings,
Yeah,
because we are going to visit another very, very prominent American city
Yeah.
that has been at the top of my list for a very long time.
But the things we've seen so far.
So far, I would say to live,
Yeah.
Boston is probably #1. I would say DC might be #2. And I think I would put Chicago #3. Now mind you, I have a lot more experience in and around Chicago than I do the other cities. With Boston, I've been there twice for a combined 6 or 7 hours, if that. DC, we spent 1 day in DC. So we didn't really get to see the negative aspects of those cities. Well, we did see some pretty wild stuff in Boston, but that's a different discussion for a different day. But I feel like those are my top 3 as far as living. For visiting, definitely New York is going to be #1, because honestly, I don't know that Boston would even be in my top 3 to visit.
No.
Because if you're European, if you're going to catch a flight to America
Yeah.
to see a city, you're basically, if you go to Boston, getting a diet Europe. You're getting Europe 2.0, just not as good. So I wouldn't recommend visiting Boston, but I do think that New York should be #1 on everyone's list. Times Square, especially if you're from Europe, it's a pretty short flight, I think, maybe 6 hours at most. I would say #2, honestly, Chicago. Chicago is a great city to visit. Again, you kind of get that authentic American feel. So if you really want to see America, which if you're going to go to America, I'm assuming that's what you want to see, then it doesn't really get much more American than this, while still having all of the urban amenities, the walkability, etc.
What would you say makes this American?
Just the geographical location, because you have to think about it. Chicago is located in Illinois, which literally earlier she didn't even know that Illinois was a place. I'm not saying that to put you down or anything. I'm saying that to say that it's not a place that people know about. So most Americans, we actually call Illinois a flyover state. And I don't know if you know what that means, but basically a flyover state is a state that you just fly over. You never really visit that place. So a lot of the places that we're going to be driving through over the next few days are considered flyover states. So, by the way, I don't know where in the hell we're walking right now.
Yeah, I don't know.
But I reckon maybe it'd be a good idea to turn back. But this is kind of a flyover state. So you have to think about it. If a lot of Americans aren't even visiting these places other than Chicago, then there's definitely not a lot of international tourism in places like this. So that's how it sort of retains that authentic American feel. Of course, everywhere in the US has international influence because it's a country entirely comprised of immigrants, other than Native Americans, of course. But you definitely just have a different vibe here. You don't really hear people speaking a whole lot of different languages, for example, when we're walking around these sidewalks. So you're getting more American tourism, if anything. But we're gonna find Millennium Park hopefully soon, so that we don't have to pay $71 for parking again. And then we will capture Nadia's raw, authentic reaction to that. So it turns out we were actually right across the street from Millennium Park the whole entire time. So I'm gonna show her Millennium Park and the Bean, and we're gonna get her authentic first impressions of Chicago's most touristy area.
Why is this the most touristy area?
It's just the place that people come to take generic pictures. Maybe you've already seen the Bean and you just didn't know it, because a lot of people take pictures with the Bean. You'll see what the Bean is, but a whole lot of beans on this trip.
Bean in Chicago.
We saw the Bean, but
It's just a picture of me there.
we'll go ahead and see the Bean. It looks like this is some sort of garden or something. If you're into botany, then maybe you might find this interesting.
Botany?
Yeah, botany.
Wow. Is that what it's called?
I think so. I hope so.
Botany.
Otherwise, I look really, really dumb right now. Okay, so as you can see, we finally found the Bean. So, gonna walk up there. I know Nadia's probably gonna want to take some pictures, send to her family. But what are your first impressions of the Bean?
Yeah, I still don't really know what this is.
Me neither. I don't think anyone knows what it is.
Is
But-
it just art?
I guess so. Some sort of statue or whatever. But you've never seen this before?
I don't think so.
So you never seen anyone take pictures with it?
No.
Well, you see this scene right here is quintessential Chicago. So you can see the train off in the distance. You have the skyscrapers, and then you have the Bean. And then you have the other Bean. But let's go up to the Bean, and I don't really know what you're really supposed to do with this.
Counter. No.
Honestly,
How many times have you seen Bean in this video?
at least 50. But like I said, this is the more touristy area, so you have a whole lot of people here. And of course you have the Bean. So let's go ahead and walk up to the Bean, and let me show you how goofy I look holding this camera. because I think that's one of the things that people don't think about when they watch videos like this, is that I'm really out here walking around with this camera, just talking to it. It's a lot easier when you have somebody else and you can talk to them, but otherwise, if you just see me walking down the street, this is what you'll see.
That's what I see.
Yep. So what do you think?
But I think they could clean it.
Yeah, I need to get some Windex or something.
It's pretty cool.
But this is the cool scene next to the bean
Yeah.
with Nadia and Jordan Green. All right, so I know I haven't really recorded a whole lot of our eats, because generally whenever we get anything beyond canned food, we kind of just make that our quality time and just do our best to enjoy that moment without the intrusion of the camera. That said, for this particular one, I have to record it. I have to get Nadia's first impressions of a Chicago deep dish pizza. So for starters, just from where I'm sitting, that tomato smell is super, super strong.
Yeah.
But they said this
actually-
is a cheese pizza. Where's the cheese?
Yeah.
I don't
I
see
guess
it.
it's under there, but it actually smells more like pasta to me
Yeah.
than pizza. And it's super big.
It's a big slice. Put your
One
hand on it.
slice.
Very, very big slice.
Yeah. This one slice is almost like a whole pizza to me.
Yeah.
And then I guess the difference is you eat it with a fork.
Yeah, I don't see how you can eat that with your hands. You're getting
About
that
to see
little
what-
bite.
What the difference is between a normal pizza and this.
See what this is talking about. Okay, first bite.
Yeah, that's good though.
It's good.
Yeah.
But what does it taste like?
It tastes more like lasagna to me. Kind of.
Okay, there is a lot of cheese there then.
Yeah.
It does kind of look like lasagna
Yeah.
actually.
It's more, it's giving lasagna pizza.
Lasagna
If
pizza.
lasagna was a pizza, I feel like it would be this. There's a lot of tomato sauce.
Yeah. So do you like this better than the New York pizza that we had?
That's,
Or are they too different to compare?
yeah, I feel like this is a different experience. This is just, first of all, you don't eat it with your hands,
Yeah.
which I think this would be a little bit more of an elevated experience.
Yeah.
And if you're really wanting to dive in and just have something really cozy, then I would say the other pizza.
Yeah, that makes sense.
This feels a little bit more healthy to me.
That feels healthier to you?
Just because I'm eating it like this, I guess.
Yeah, that
And
makes
because
sense.
it makes me think more of lasagna. I
Yeah.
don't know if lasagna is necessarily healthy either, but
I mean, it's all the same ingredients, just repackaged.
yeah.
Hold on, you gotta get a crust bite though, because Nadia is a crust person. That's how she judges pizzas. So let's see what that's talking about.
Okay. Got this tomato in there though.
Okay. It's nice.
It's making me think of a quiche.
Quiche. What's a
Yeah.
quiche?
Yeah, it kind of looks like this. It's kind of like savory pie. If that
Mm.
makes sense.
Yeah.
It's kind of making me think of that. It's good, but
It's good.
I think I'd still go for the New York.
You heard it here first. New York
I don't know
pizza
if
is
that-
superior.
I don't know if that is because I just have more toppings on it.
True. You only had what, pepperoni and jalapenos, I
Yeah.
think?
But I never really eat a pizza like that, just margarita.
Yeah.
And I guess this is like margarita.
Yeah.
dish.
That makes sense. It still smells very good though.
It is
Where I'm
pretty
sitting,
good.
so Now you can say you've had Chicago pizza, you've had New York pizza, you've had pizza in Italy, right?
Yeah, but that was not real Italian pizza to me. That was not good pizza.
Or maybe you just don't like real Italian pizza.
No. I feel like I had pizza there before.
You did?
And that one wasn't good because it was just this. The restaurant wasn't very good.
Yeah.
But
But in general, do you like Italian pizza more than the American pizza you've had? That's another big debate.
it's been too long since I've had Italian pizza. I don't really remember what it was like.
Well, I guess that means we have to go to Italy and find out.